no completion. Konnichiwa! Hello and welcome to the Two Consoles Too Late podcast. I'm the host, Jackson Keebler, and I am Two Consoles Too Late. What does that mean here at this here podcast? I look at the classics and the not-so-classics of retro video gaming, often for the very first time, and with no nostalgia. And here on episode 170, a nice little round number, we're looking at Blazing Lasers, also known as Gunhead, released in 1989 by Hudson Soft. And with me later in the podcast is Larry Moorman, formerly of the Retro Gamers podcast, now of the What's in My Popcorn podcast. And we talk a little bit about this shooter on the TurboGrafx 16. We're also going to have some Going Long. We're going to be talking about a game that I was excited to acquire. Also going to do some auction alert, see what's out there for shooters on the shop Goodwill. And let's see here. We're going to do some on the Kitty Lunch Hour. We got some exciting news, big news. So lots to talk about. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get started.
Going long. It is going long. Looking long. Going long. It is going long. Looking long.
All right, a lot to talk about here on Going Long, but I'm going to try to keep it short. Most of it, head on over to the Patreon at patreon.com/2consoles2late. I do a bonus podcast of Two Consoles called Going Long, where I can go more in depth with what I discuss here. Because it would, make the podcast go long. Imagine that. Okay, let's go. What have I acquired? I finally Frankenstein together my copy of Kingsfield. You can check that out on the Instagrams. When I'm not dancing to EBM, I'm going through this weird phase in electronic music right now. I finally got together my copy of Kingsfield. I got the case and the manual a couple months ago from the shop Goodwills, and I just now got around to picking up a disc. I think I bookmarked one on eBay, and the seller sent me a pretty nice discount, so I picked that up. So I now have a CIB copy of Kingsfield, which I'm excited to play on the live stream, which is every Saturday morning. Now at 8 o'clock. It used to be 7:30, but now I'm bumping it. I'm just tired of sort of dragging myself out of bed that early. So I'm bumping it by a half an hour. Excuse me. But now, 8 o'clock a.m., you can check me out on YouTube and Twitch at Two Consoles Too Late, where I play a game from the PS1 Longbox collection. And the past live stream, I played Gunship, flight sim where you fly an Apache helicopter. I love my helicopters. Kind of like my flight sims. This one came from Microprose, which is right up the street in Hunt Valley, founded by Sid Meier. It was okay. The whole time I was playing it, I was kind of feeling nostalgic for Firebirds. It's like Top Gun, but with helicopters, and it had Nick Cage. And I had a copy on VHS until I got a VCR from an estate sale, and I was testing it out, and I put in my copy of Firebirds, and it ate my tape. So I need to get another copy of Firebirds, which is a fun little film. Other than that, no other real acquisitions. We'll talk about what's on the shop Goodwills over at Auction Alert. But I did pass on a copy of Fade to Black for the Longbox collection. My local retro video game store had it. It was about $60. The artwork wasn't so good, but I passed. Just didn't have the scratch, as it were. And a funny factoid, Fade to Black is actually the sequel to the game Flashback, which I talked about in episode 141. right, it's 1989, and you are the one kid in your neighborhood who got a TurboGrafx 16 and not a Nintendo. So you're playing one of three games. You're playing, Newtopia, Keith Courageous, or you're possibly playing Blazing Lasers, also known as Gunhead. Now, how did I come to this one? Well, here I am again talking about another shooter. And I feel like I'm talking about a shooter right on the heels of R-Type. Which actually, I feel like it was like 2 months ago, but it's a lot longer than that. And my experience with R-Type wasn't good because that game was just very difficult and very punishing.
Stick it!
So I went over to the TurboGrafx 16 and I started playing some Blazing Lasers just to kind of see if it was me or R-Type was just too hard. And I got some progression in Blazing Lasers. And I found, that R-Type is just a really difficult game. And that I'm not that bad at shooters, but we're going to talk about my experience with Blazing Lasers here in a bit. So I got home from work one night, and I felt like playing a game that was sort of mindless. I didn't feel like doing a Zelda, but I didn't feel like doing a puzzle game like Tetris or Zoop. So I just started playing some Blazing Lasers. And shooters are good for that. You sort of check in, check out, and, just sort of decompress on the day. And I was able to get some progression. And yes, I was using those save states, which I often do with shooters. And I did attempt a 1cc playthrough, and I'm going to talk about that. So I started playing. I really enjoyed it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to throw this one over to the podcast. Because I'm finding with shooters, also known as shmups, that it's a bit like Goldilocks. All right, some are too hard, some are too fast, some are too cute, some are too boring, and it's just a matter of finding the right shooter, especially here at Two Consoles Too Late. And there are so many shooters out there. There's just too many to talk about. There's shooters on pretty much every console in existence, and I'd be hard-pressed to find a console that didn't have a shooter. So I am ever searching for the shmup for me. If you head on over to the YouTubes, Jeremy Parrish, who is a well-known video game YouTuber and historian and podcaster as well, he did a video about Blazing Lasers, also known as Gunhead. Before I jump into his video real quick, Blazing Lasers is the American version of the Japanese game called Gunhead. All right, so in Japan it was called Gunhead. Here it's called Blazing Lasers. All right, so when they localized it to America, I guess they just think that we're stupid and we're not going to understand it unless it's like some sort of tempestuous, epic thing that, Blazing Lasers versus Gunhead. So I don't know. That's just the way it goes. So if I say Gunhead, I'm talking about Blazing Lasers. And if I talk about Blazing Lasers, I'm talking about Gunhead. Why? Because they're the same game. Anyway, Jeremy Parrish. He did a video talking about Blazing Lasers. But that guy, he's super smart. And I give him all the credit in the world. And I'm not dunking on him. But his video, he turned this game into like a PhD thesis. So if you want a real deep dive into Blazing Lasers, I highly recommend Jeremy Parrish's video on the YouTubes talking about Blazing Lasers, also known as Gunhead. But a little history, Blazing Lasers was developed by Compile, a studio that had earned a reputation for creating high-quality scrolling shooters. And Compile was responsible for several influential titles in the 80s and the 90s, including the Alesti series, Musha, Space Megaforce, and also a game called Guardian Legend, which we talked about here on episode 142. But the game became an early showcase title for the TurboGrafx 16, and at a time when scrolling shooters were extremely popular in arcades and on home consoles, it demonstrated that the system could deliver smooth action with minimal slowdown and wonderful, vibrant visuals. I'm going to talk about that minimal slowdown because that was something that I hadn't really noticed until like an hour into playing it. I was like, wait a minute, there's no lag with this game, which was something that I experienced with the Gradius. So once again, we're doing this Goldilocks things with the the shooters. It's like, you know what? This one has lag. This one doesn't. You know, it's just trying to find the right one here at Two Consoles. All right, the gameplay of Blazing Lasers. It is a vertical scrolling shooter. That's a mouthful. Where players pilot the Gunhead Starfighter through 9 increasingly challenging stages. The objective is straightforward like in any shooter. Survive waves of enemy ships, avoid incoming fire, and defeat massive bosses at the end of each level. I've yet to encounter a shooter that, you know, has a cutscene that talks about the story, okay? There's no stories in shooters. It's all action. The controls are very responsive and simple and allow the player to focus on dodging enemy attacks while unleashing continuous fire. What I like about Blazing Lasers and I did not like about R-Type is that you can hold down that fire button and you get a steady stream of ammunition from your weapons. With R-Type, you held down that fire button and all you got was a charge beam. While it did some damage, I didn't like it. So it was nice to come over to Blazing Lasers and just be able to hold down that button while avoiding the enemy fire. But one of the game's defining features is its weapon system. Compile is known for its shooters and its weapon systems. Throughout each stage, players collect colored power-up icons that unlock different weapon types, and each weapon offers a unique state of play. And they are... Roman numeral 1 is the Photon Blaster. Photon Blaster, to me, was completely useless. Even when you upgrade that thing, it didn't help a lot. So Roman numeral 1 was Photon Blaster, completely useless. Field number 2, this was very useful. Très useful. I have in my typewritten notes, which you can check out over at the Patreon at patreon.com/2consoles2late, where I post a picture of my typewritten notes from playing a video game. All right, enough shameless self-promotion. Roman numeral 2 was Field Thunder. And I loved me some Field Thunder, so I highly recommend that one. Roman numeral number 3 was Power Wave. Power Wave was kind of like a spread. That's the best way I can explain it. It was like a beam that was sort of wide, and as you upgraded it, it just basically annihilated everything on the screen. I still preferred that Field Thunder over Power Wave, but if I couldn't use Field Thunder, I used Power Wave. Because number 4, Ring Blaster, that also was completely useless. Now, as you go through the game, you shoot some of these ships and they have this pink orb that starts floating around the screen. And those are called gels. And what those did was increase your firepower. So they often came in handy. However, sometimes you'd find yourself going to chase one of the gels on screen and you would just fly right into a bullet. But one of the nice things about Blazing Lasers, aka Gunhead, is that one-hit kills weren't really a thing here because once you had some shields and some power-ups, you could take a hit and be okay. Moving on, there were also some other power-ups in the form of letters, and those letters were H, which was for homing missiles. Kind of handy. The missiles themselves were kind of slow and sort of created some chaos on the screen to the point where it was like I wasn't sure which missiles were mine and which missiles were theirs. So I really avoided homing missiles, but they could come in handy. S were shields, and that was like my go-to power-up icon all the time. You pick up 3 or 4 shield icons, and you could take some damage and be okay. So I was always trying to pick me up the shield icons. But you also had M, which was for multi-body. That was like an extra ship that would fire your weapon and fly around you. Something that's pretty common in shooters, aka shmups, also known here at Two Consoles as shmups. Now, so there was a multi-body option, and F was full fire, which enhanced the power of your weapon. Here at Two Consoles, as I was playing through before I read the manual, I thought the F stood for something like fast and somehow sped up your ship, but that was not the case. F was for full fire. Now you also did have cluster bombs. It was a bomb. You would press the B button and you'd shoot a bomb, and it basically destroyed everything on the screen. Very handy. Helped out in a pinch. To the point where a lot of times I forgot that I had that option. So I wasn't too dependent on the cluster bomb, but it was nice to have an option where, things got a little hairy, you just destroyed everything on the screen. Unlike many shooters of the era, Blazing Lasers struck an effective balance between accessibility and challenge. I really liked Blazing Lasers because it was pretty forgiving, and some people don't like that. Some people want a bullet hell. Some people want pain and punishment in their shooters. I do not. So yes, this game was very accessible while still offering some challenge. New players can make steady progress, while experienced players can master the weapons management, memorize the enemy patterns, and get strategic use of the power-ups to achieve high scores. So, what was my experience like here at Two Consoles Too Late? Well, of course, once again, I was using save states just to get some progression and see what the game was like throughout all the stages. I made it all the way to the end using those save states, but my weapon build, that's what I call here at Two Consoles, a build is like how you put the weapons and the shields together, effectively to get through the game. My build, I think I was using Field Thunder, and I don't think I had shields, and I just couldn't get through this one final boss. But I went over to the YouTubes just to kind of check out what the end of the game looked like, and I didn't miss too much. But I wasn't near off the end. But once again, I was using those save states. So I tried to do a 1cc run through. For those who don't know, it's a glossary term. A 1cc playthrough on a shooter is a 1 coin credit. All right, so assuming that you're in the arcade, your 1 quarter would only go as far as you could go as a player. And Gunhead did have continues. Once again, it was very forgiving with that. So if you went through all your lives, you were able to continue. I mean, yes, your score went back to 0 and you had to rebuild your weapons, but I thought that was a nice option. But with a 1cc playthrough, I was able to reach Area 4, and I actually got a lot of extra lives. I got up to like 7 extra lives. I was pretty proud of that. I got to Area 4, and my score was 722,250. When I did my save state run, my score was like 3 million, something stupid and ridiculous, only because I was using those save states. Often with shooters, I mean, score is a thing. I don't play shooters for score. Once again, another Goldilocks thing. This one's too hot. This one's too cold. Some shooters keep score, and if that's your bag, great. Here, not so much. I just want to play the game and just, listen to some good tunes and not get punished too much. But visually, Blazing Lasers impressed players with its colorful graphics, detailed backgrounds, and large animated bosses. The game maintained a smooth frame rate throughout most of the experience, and something that wasn't too common in shooters of the late 80s and 90s. I'm looking at you, Gradius. I'm looking at you. The soundtrack complements the action with energetic compositions that build intensely as each stage progresses. Combined with the detailed sound effects and polished presentation, the game delivers an experience that still holds up today. All right, so let's play a jam from Blazing Lasers. This is Area 2, also known as Big Borgo. But Gunhead was originally a film in Japan that was released in 1989. On Jeremy Parrish's video, he talks a little bit about the film. The film has very little to do with the video game. There's like one scene apparently in the movie that's somewhat similar to the video game. So how the two became, associated with each other is beyond me. The film is not streaming. And so I went over to the Amazons just to see, how much a copy was. And a Blu-ray copy of Gunhead is $56 on Amazon. So I think I'm just going to wait till that comes to streaming, if it ever does. I'd be curious to see this film. But if you want to talk about video games and you want to talk about films, I know a guy to talk to. His name is Larry Mormon, formerly of the Retro Gamers podcast. now of the What's in My Popcorn podcast, and I invited him here to talk a little bit about Blazing Lasers on Between the Headphones. Larry, it's been a while since we talked. How have you been?
Doing very well, doing very well. It has been a minute. I think the last time we spoke, you were on the well, I was on, excuse me, the Retro Gamers, and it was one of my last episodes on the Retro Gamers. So you caught me at the very end, the tail end of my run.
But you've come back occasionally recently.
I have, yeah, I've been helping out Anthony as we lead into the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, and I'll be helping him out at the expo as well. So it's kind of old hat for the two of us.
Yeah, that's next weekend, right?
Yes, August 7th, 8th, and 9th. Excuse me, easier said than done. At the Cradle of Aviation. Get your tickets, liretro.com.
Yeah, I sadly will not be there this year.
Ah,
yeah. Anyway, but you have another podcast venture. I'm a fan and a regular listener. So you want to talk about that? What's in my popcorn?
Yes, and thank you very much for listening. And I apologize that we did miss your suggestion. We're not used to the Facebook feed as much. We go with the emails, but What's in My Popcorn, myself and my friend Frank, for a long time, friend Frank, where we basically talk about movies. And the catch is we pick a movie at the end of an episode. We pick a movie from our libraries to watch that week, and then we conjure up again to talk about it. And it's movies, blockbusters, good movies. But it's always fun when we pull a movie that one of us likes that we know the other one won't. Like just recently, we did The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, which I'm a huge wrestling fan. So I loved it. Frank wasn't crazy about it, but we talked about it and we had a good time. What's in My Popcorn every Monday, 7 a.m. Eastern, wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can email us suggestions, popcornpod123@gmail.com.
All right, so I'm doing Blazing Lasers, the shmup. Well known on the TurboGrafx 16. I came to it just because I started emulating TurboGrafx 16 games, and so I started playing Neutopia and Neutopia 2, and I guess there's like some go-to games on the TurboGrafx 16 or the PC Engine, whichever you prefer. And Blazing Lasers, aka Gunhead, is definitely kind of a go-to. I am fascinated by like the shooter genre. I've talked about Gradius 3. I enjoyed that. It was difficult. Recently, I talked about R-Type. That was really difficult. So the other night I get home from work, I'm just like, you know what? I just feel like just sort of vegging out and just playing something mindless. So I popped in Blazing Lasers, and I mean, it's just... I can get some progression on that shooter, whereas some shooters are like really difficult. And so Anthony said, you know what, you should talk to Larry and see, because that would, he's got some thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I shoot 'em ups are my favorite genre of video games, whether it's a vertical or a side scrolling. Absolutely love it. And you named some heavy hitters: Gradius, R-Type, Blazing Lasers, yeah, on the TurboGrafx. For the most part, if it's a shoot 'em up, it's guaranteed I'm going to purchase it. And I'm not even good at them. I'll be the first one to tell you I am terrible at shoot 'em ups. I've never completed any of them, let alone get far. I mean, R-Type, I'm lucky if I get past like the third or fourth level.
Wow.
Oh no, I suck. But it's because usually I go in guns a-blazing and I never learn that you have to take your time with these, even with the bullet hell type games. But Blazing Lasers, I remember that I didn't have a TurboGrafx growing up. I always say everyone, unless you're the one who owned it, everyone knew one kid in the neighborhood who had a TurboGrafx. No more, no less. I was not that kid, but I knew someone who had it. And I can't remember if he had Blazing Lasers. I might have played it a little bit, but I experienced it first on the Wii, when the Wii had the Virtual Console and the TurboGrafx games. So that's where I originally downloaded it, and then later on, picked it up on the TurboGrafx Mini. I do have a physical copy now of Blazing Lasers, and it's hard nowadays for shoot 'em ups to separate themselves out because it's a straightforward genre. You move automatically. Enemies coming at you, bullets coming at you, rinse, repeat. But I feel like Blazing Lasers did take a different approach. First of all, TurboGrafx, they were known, in my opinion, for their shoot 'em ups with R-Type and with some of the other ones that have come out. But with Blazing Lasers, it was something about the way, like the atmosphere moved, even ever so slightly, but it still moved a little bit. I always found it weird that some of the like levels were almost like it seemed off-centered, like that second area with the what looked like construction beams.
Yes.
But like was never like I keep trying to move over to center it, but it doesn't it doesn't truly center. It's something tiny, I know, something minute, but I always enjoyed that. The weapons are great, the weapon upgrades are great. And Blazing Laser is one of those ones that also you can change the speed. And I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm always ramping up the speed, just going full throttle into it. But and I played it when you told me we were doing this. I played it to gear up for for this episode, and I have to admit there was a little bit of a difference between playing on the Virtual Console and the original cart. I can't put my finger on it, but playing the original cart, coming from me, a digital guy, felt natural.
I guess when I go into a shooter, I too am not good at these things, and I need those save states just to like kind of get some progression. And the reason I do that is just to kind of see what the levels are like, um, and then after saving, I mean, I'm saving like every 30 seconds, and I've got to score like 3 million or something ridiculous.
Okay.
But that's how my experience with shooters has been, that they're very difficult. I have to use save states just to kind of like be able to play the game and talk about the game. But one thing I noticed with Gradius, not so much with R-Type, a little bit with Raiden Project, is like I guess you have like a go-to build. It's what I call a build. Like what weapons do you choose, in which fashion? And I've been noticing with Blazing Lasers that I prefer like the Field Thunder. But sometimes, depending on the situation, you kind of need like a certain weapon. Do you have like a go-to kind of build or weapon in Blazing?
I do. I like how you put that build. And I've done that even when I was a kid, playing Gradius, playing R-Type on the Super Nintendo. I'd always have those go-to weapons. In Blazing Lasers, I don't remember the names of the lasers themselves. I just know it's weapon number 3,
Yeah.
kind of like the long lasers. And then sometimes they'll pan out to the
That's
side.
Field
And then they'll
Thunder.
circle. Okay, yeah. So that's my favorite. And I get so annoyed when I accidentally hit one of the other one of the other ones, especially that the one that almost looked like little triangles, not triangles, like half circles.
Disruptor beam.
Yeah, you're better at that. Again, I'm not good with the names. I just go into it and I play. But because I don't think I've ever read an instruction booklet. But be that as it may, that's
I mean, well, you never play a shmup for the story. I mean, come on.
No, true. I can't, you're right. I mean, short of aliens show up, destroy the aliens. Okay, done. But no, that and then the secondary is always the kind of like the what I call options, which is from
From
Gradius.
Gradius. Yeah.
But yeah, those and again, whenever I accidentally switch to something else, I'm like, oh man, and I gotta wait to get it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is my go-to.
Roman numeral 1 is completely useless in that game.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of sticking with Field Disruptor. I think that's 2, and the Field Thunder I think is 3.
Yeah.
But then you have like the shield upgrades and whatnot. So I mean, like, I'm enjoying it, and it's to use some shooter vocabulary. I can never 1cc that game. I don't think
No.
I could 1cc any shooter.
I never have, and I'll never even try. And I've done them all. Again, the Gradius, the R-Type. Darius is another great series. Have you ever seen a Darius arcade machine in the wild?
No, but I'm glad you bring up arcades. So I'm sitting here playing Blazing Lasers. I'm emulating. I'm at home, and I just was thinking, you know what? I think what I'm trying to somehow capture is that arcade experience. I do have nostalgia for playing shooters. I can't remember which ones I played, but now you can't go to an arcade and be able to play shooters anymore,
Yeah.
unless it's a retro arcade. And we have an arcade here in Baltimore. It's like one of those bowling alley arcade things.
Okay. Okay.
It's like in a mall.
Yeah.
And they like tucked away back in the corner, they had some shooters, and it was great. Like play a little pinball and then play some shooters, but they got rid of them. And it's just, I mean, to play a shooter in an arcade, with the better graphics, the better sound, it was such an experience. And, trying to bring the experience to console while, there are good and some bad, I think arcade is just always the way to go.
Yeah, and I think nowadays it's easier to replicate the arcade experience. Well, at least as far as the graphics and everything with the modern consoles. Speaking of Darius, like I have it's the Darius Arcade Collection.
Yep.
So it is, pretty much I'll say arcade perfect. A lot of those the Hamster arcade archives, what they pull up, and especially now with the Switch 2 and on the PS5 and Xbox, they do a lot. It gets a lot closer to that one-to-one arcade feel. But one of the best, actually with Darius, that's a tough one to replicate at home because the original Darius machines were like 2, even 3 screens wide. I remember when I first saw it. No, yeah, when I first saw a Darius machine, which wasn't that long ago, probably about 10 years ago. It was 3 screens wide, and it's a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. So you sit in the cockpit, if you will, but it's so wide, which is an awesome experience to play. But when I'm playing at home, to get that feel, it's like a letterbox edition, and it doesn't do it justice. But that's only because of if I had maybe like one of these like ultra wide screen computer monitors, and it might work out a whole lot better. But I remember, I'm going to go way back. My original and still my favorite is 1942.
Yes.
And I had it on the NES. I have it on the NES. Plays amazing on the NES. But it was also like the only arcade game version that I downloaded. Again, going back to the Wii console with the virtual console, they had the arcade version of 1942. And it was a world of difference. Again, probably an arcade I never really played growing up because I was just used to the NES version. But when I played the arcade version, I was like, where was this all my life?
Have you ever seen the movie Gunhead? Because apparently there's this Japanese movie called Gunhead that I guess either the video game's based on the movie or vice versa.
No, I never, again, doing the research and what you were telling me, with the lead up to this episode, yeah, I had no idea the game was based on a movie.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing my best to try and find the movie. I don't think it's streaming anywhere in the US, let alone to purchase streaming. So I might have to find a DVD of it. But when reading about the game, about the movie sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It's like a post-apocalyptic or dystopian world. And, they just got these mechs walking around and stuff.
That's my jam right there. I mean, the minute you say something's dystopian, I'm like, boom, sold. I'm there.
So this is now a goal of mine to try and find this movie. It's got to be somewhere like on Tubi or something like that. But I'll find it. I'll try and mention it on the podcast on What's in My Popcorn.
So thank you and namaste to Larry Mormon for coming here on the podcast to talk a little bit about Blazing Lasers, aka Gunhead. He was formerly the co-host of the Retro Gamers podcast, but now he's just sort of making cameos. But now his big venture is the What's in My Popcorn podcast, so be sure to check that out. But in our conversation, we were talking about the Long Island Retro Expo. It's an expo that I highly recommend, but logistically here at Two Consoles, it's a bit of an ordeal. My sister used to live in New Jersey, but now she doesn't. So I could just crash there and then jump over to Long Island, which was like a 2-hour drive. But that is no longer the case. Now I'd have to drive from Baltimore to Long Island, and it's an ordeal. It'd be like 5 hours one way because it's 3 hours to the Verrazano, 2 hours on the Long Island Expressway. And I just don't, I'm too old. I just don't have the patience for that anymore. So I will not be in attendance at the Long Island Retro Expo, but be sure to check out Anthony and Larry. They're going to have a table set up, and it's a wonderful expo. Lots of history. There's great arcades, great vendors, and if you're into airplanes, you got those as well. Be sure to check out the Patreon at patreon.com/2consoles2late, where I do a bonus podcast called Going Long. where I extend the conversations that I have with the guests here on the podcast and talk about other things going on that would make this podcast go long, which it is doing now. So we're going to have to wrap up here on Gunhead. All right, so we got through the AI slap portion of the podcast. What did I think of Blazing Lasers, aka Gunhead, here at Two Consoles Too Late? All right, let's wrap this up. What did I think of Blazing Lasers, also known as Gunhead? I'm going to drive the point home once more. There are a lot of shoot-em-ups out there, and there's too many to talk about, and there's too many to play. But my, I guess, strategy here at Two Consoles Too Late is to kind of hit the classics first, see what I like, see what I don't like, and then building on that, try to find just the right shoot-em-up. This one's too hard. This one, I don't like the weapons. This one, I don't like the graphics. This one's too easy. This one's too cute. It's just a matter of finding that happy medium. And I'm going to find it. And if you think that there's a shoot-em-up out there I should play, then you should drop me a comment or send me a message and recommend one, and I'll try to get to it. All right? But that all being said, let's go into some auction alert. What's out there for shooters on the Shop Goodwills? Well, a copy of Blazing Lasers, also known as Gunhead, is $90 complete in box, and the Who card by itself is just $53 loose. But it is also included on the PC Engine Mini. You can get one of those, depending on where you get it, for about, we'll say $200. I think that's kind of the high end of the PC Engine Mini, aka TurboGrafx 16 Mini. Plug and play. Funny side story though, I did see a PC Engine Mini at my local retro video game store. It was $100, and I once again, if I had $100 in my wallet, it wouldn't be there anymore because I would have bought that. But thankfully, I am not blessed with such riches. All right, so let's jump right into this. Let's see what's on the Shop Goodwills on Auction Alert.
Auction alert.
If you do a search on the Shop Goodwills right now for the TurboGrafx 16, currently there are none available and there are no games available. So I had to go back and look at some sold listings on the Shop Goodwills. And I found a TurboGrafx 16 console with accessories. It powered on. It was pre-owned, obviously. Comes from a Goodwill. It sold July 28th. It got 27 bids. This thing had the box. It came with Keith Courage, the packing game, which I thought Blazing Lasers was the packing game for the TurboGrafx 16. It was not. It was Keith Courage in the Alpha Zones. Anyway, this sold for $441, and it came from the Goodwill Industries of Southwest Florida. Is there a Southwest Florida? I mean, is that like the southwest of the Panhandle? Is that the southwest of the peninsula? I don't know. Is that Gulf side, Atlantic side? I don't know. I'll ask my sister. She's a resident of Florida. But anyway, a beautiful console, complete with the box. Went for $440. And that seems like a fair price. But moving on, a couple Hue cards sold for $159.88. It was 2 games that included World Class Baseball and another shooter on the TurboGrafx 16, sort of a cute 'em up, Air Zonk, a game I'm very curious to play. It came from the Goodwill of South Mississippi. That sold July 27th. And once again, it got 8 bids and sold for $160. So there were other shooters on the TurboGrafx 16 other than Blazing Lasers. All right, one of my bookmarks here at the Studios of Two Consoles on the Shop Goodwills, I found a copy of R-Type 3 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It was tested. This auction ends August 3rd, and this is coming from the Goodwill Industries of South Central Wisconsin. And right now with 3 bids, it's up to $200. So there's a shooter on the Shop Goodwills. I'm sure if I went through the game lots, I'm sure I could find plenty more shooters. Once again, there's just too many to talk about. But there were a couple auctions I wanted to just give some quick lip service. Okay, first let's talk about some long box games. Right now it's kind of slim pickings over at the Shop Goodwills for long box games, which is fine because my wallet can't handle that right now. But there's a copy of Alien Trilogy. It's coming from the Goodwill of Northwest North Carolina, someplace I'm gonna be soon, but I'm gonna talk about that in a bit. Anyway. Alien Trilogy untested. Right now it's only at $15.99 with only 2 bids, and that auction ends today. But I'm sure that is going to jump by the end of the auction. Another long box game, we got Tekken coming from the Goodwill of Hawaii. That's got 7 bids. It's up to $30.99. Whenever I see anything coming from the Goodwill of Hawaii, I just skip over it because I assume that the shipping is going to be astronomical. But there's a copy of Tekken coming from them. Now, there is this strange listing that I have to talk about. It's coming from the Goodwill Industries of San Joaquin Valley. Now, I'm just going to assume that's California. All right. All right, let's click on it. Yeah, Stockton, California. Here's the title. Resurface video game lot 300 plus 15 pounds. Okay. Resurfaced. All right. With 4 days, 10 hours left on this auction, it's got 7 bids and it's up to $401. Now, this is the listing. Item description, resurfaced video game lot 300 plus. All games have been resurfaced by EcoMaster Resurfacer. All right. They're untested, various platforms used, sold as is. So for S and Gs, I headed on over to the Googles and I was like, okay, how much is an EcoMaster Resurfacer? And that machine new is $22,000, but it resurfaces like 50 discs at a time or something. I found a used one on the eBays for $6,000. And I'm like, why is a Goodwill resurfacing discs? Like, there's a guy on social media, Phoenix Resell or something like that. He opened up a video game store and he did a video like, oh, I resurface all the discs that come into my shop. Some people like that, some people don't. I don't know. But anyway, to see a Goodwill resurfacing their discs seems like overkill. Because, I mean, depending on whether they're resurfaced or not, when I was at Goodwill, our wheelhouse was $3. So whenever we sold a disc lot, it was like, all right, as long as we're getting about $3 a disc, that was pretty good. $2 was sort of on the low end. And you got to figure, I mean, they're not really showing any bangers in these pictures. I mean, it's a pile of discs. I assume that once you kind of go through them, all right, if you found like 10 copies of Wii Sports, because Wii Sports right now is ridiculous. If you found like 10 copies of Wii Sports, that's $300 right there. So I don't think resurfacing the discs is going to do anything to help the value of this lot. I think, obviously whoever's buying this is a reseller and they're going to try to flip them. Maybe Phoenix Resale's going after them. I don't know. But just to see that a Goodwill is resurfacing discs is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, what are they going to start doing next? Fixing the consoles? All right, let's wrap things up here with the Kitty Lunch Hour, my new favorite portion of the podcast. So what am I doing? What am I buying? What am I playing? What am I watching? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I am rocking some Ocarina of Time Master Quest. I'm streaming that over on the YouTubes and the Twitches, playing that in preparation for the release of Ocarina of Time for Switch 2. Something about that Master Quest, it's just a little bit more fun. And as I'm going through and playing Ocarina of Time, I'm playing it, the GameCube version. Once again, it's the Master Quest. I just keep asking myself, how are they going to redo this? How are they going to redo this? How are they going to redo this? So I'm still kind of have some trepidation when it comes to this upcoming Ocarina of Time re-release. I just did a whole bunch of stuff over at the Patreon. Headed on over to the Patreon at patreon.com/2consoles2late. I posted my notes, my typewritten notes from Blazing Lasers. You can check those out. Some rando thoughts. But I also did a typewriter manifesto talking about Sharp LCD monitors and how they can replace a CRT for your retro gaming setup. And I'm trying to work on a video, and it's just, once again, I'm not a YouTuber, and it's like in my head, it's like, oh yeah, I'll just do this video. But when it comes down to actually sitting down and putting together a video, it's just, I'm a podcaster through and through, and that's just where I'm at. But I'm still kind of working on it. So I got some fingers in those pies, but we got some big news. Yes, we do. All right, Labor Day weekend, Saturday, 1 o'clock. I, yours truly, will be appearing at the Gaming Geek Expo, giving a panel on retro video gaming and podcasting. I'm going to change it up a little bit, given recent news and whatnot. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to be driving down there Labor Day weekend. I won't drive 5 hours to Long Island, but I will drive 6 hours to North Carolina to the Research Triangle. And sadly, the Durham Bulls will not be playing that weekend, so I guess I'm just going to have to stay at the con and look at video games and, check out other panels. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and thank you once again to Larry Mormon for coming on here and talking Blazing Lasers. Be sure to check out our extended conversation over at the Patreon at patreon.com/2consoles2late. And if you support the podcast, I will send you lots of goodies, including the Miracle of Save States magnet. And as always, have a good one. I love you, and goodbye. So unlike many shooters of the era, Blazing Lasers struck an effective let's just redo that. Would you back your kids get back on my lawn? Get them back on my lawn and tell your parents stop drinking all that beer. It's disgusting. If they should do something, they should get a job.